Alright guys, welcome back. This is James from Butler Farms, and we have gotten to the point now where we don't have a choice but to get everything cleaned up for the fall. A little fall cleaning here. We do plant some things during the fall that mature into the winter, but nothing like we do in the spring and summer. And I have to admit, not only the heat, but also this is not one of my favorite things to do. I'm standing out here beside my garden, and as you can see, there's only one way to describe this, and that is it is a mess. We have gotten peas and tomatoes and peppers and many other things out of this little garden plot for several months now, and believe it or not, I do try to keep the weeds and everything down to a minimum, but during the summer when it really starts taking off, that's a battle that I just lose every year, and then I have to come back in the fall and clean it up. But as you can see, all the tomato stakes are still in. Those will have to be pulled out, and I'll come through here and pull all these plants as well. Now, one of the questions that I've gotten is, why did I have a fence around the raised beds that I showed you the other day? And I've also got this fence around this little garden plot. We, to say the least, have a deer problem in this area, and so it's not a real high fence. Most places it's only about 5 feet tall, but over the past several years it has worked really well. It doesn't, they don't mess with it much, but as you can see, I've laid the fence back, and that's on purpose. I want them in here now. They will end up doing a lot of the cleanup for me, as long as I'll provide them a way to get in. And I can see on the ends of some of my pepper plants and some of the grass that's come up, I can see that they've already been at work, and that's good. So as long as they stay out of here during the productive part, I'll let them have it during this part. But this is going to be a process. I'll have to come in here and pull all these stakes, and then come through here and get rid of all these weeds. And also I'm going to pull all the tomato plants and all the pepper plants. Most people just till them under. I don't. Toward the end of the season, they started getting diseased and started looking really rough, and I'm going to try to get as much of that out as I can, so that it doesn't overwinter in the soil and end up being a problem. But that's just part of the cleanup. I'll show you in just a few moments another part that I have to take care of as well. All right guys, here's another part of what I'm dealing with as far as fall cleanup. Now, I grow a lot of produce in buckets. I'll do a video on that next spring when it's time for that. But as you can see, all the plants have played out. Got quite a bit off of them this year. There's several 9 buckets there. I've already, and here's some more down through here that we used this year. I've already shown you the buckets that we used for that I'm going to plant my kale in the lettuce video, and that's probably the only 2 I'll use. As I said in that video, we don't eat a lot of kale. We do mix it in salads, chop it up real fine, mix it in salads. We don't eat a lot of it, so that's all we'll need. Now, these buckets, I will pull the old plants out of them. I will dump them and basically stack them. Now, a lot of things that you read tells you that you need to disinfect them. I do that in the spring. When I pull them back out and get them ready to go for the spring, I will disinfect them with a very mild, weak bleach solution. I'll just rinse them out with that, and that takes care of anything that might still be in there. But that's part of the cleanup as well. I need to get them up out of the yard and get them stacked for the fall and the winter. And the only ones that will still be in use will be the ones down by the raised beds with the lettuce. So when I get all that done, I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like as I kind of put the garden to bed for the fall, and start looking forward to next spring when we're going to expand the garden and maybe try a little bit different as far as the keeping the deer out, and something a little bit more workable as far as getting equipment in and those kind of things. So stay with me, and then when I get all this wrapped up, I will bring you back and show you what it looks like. Thanks. All right guys, well, we finally made it to the end of the big fall cleanup. As you can see, I've got all my buckets that I showed you earlier empty. They've been washed out and ready to stack behind the shed. They won't live here all winter. That's something that I'll put up later. I've got the ones that were down beside the shed that are washed out and ready to stack and go behind the shed as well. I did want to show you, when I put my soil together for my pots, it's very time consuming and it takes quite a bit of work. So even when I'm done with it, this is the soil out of those buckets, and I'll leave it here all winter, and come spring I will use it in different ways. One of the ways in which I'll use it is I will put it in some of the bare spots in our yard. We've got some spots in the yard that are real poor as far as being able to grow grass, and there's one of those right there. But ever since we built this house and moved in, I've been working to try to get the grass to grow, and so I'll use this old homemade potting soil that I've used during the spring and the summer, and I will put that over the yard, and it's still got a little life left in it, so I'd like to use that. I noticed with the other part of the video, one of the main things that we grow in the buckets are cucumbers and different kinds of squash. Now, as you saw when I was showing you the raised beds earlier, we grow some winter squash in the raised beds. We grow some winter squash in the buckets, but we also grow our summer squash in the buckets. And the reason for that is because I have tried for years to grow them in the ground in the main garden, and we have such an infestation of squash bugs here that about the only way that we're going to get any fresh summer squash that we grow ourselves is to put it in a bucket. Haven't had any problems with squash bugs when I do it that way. I see some around, but they don't ever get on the plants. But if I put it in the ground in the garden, it'll only be a couple of days before they eat the plants completely up. Also, I'm going to take you down to the main garden and show you what it looks like down there. Alright guys, the main garden is finally cleaned out. I showed you earlier in the video how bad it actually looked in here with all the weeds and all the tomato stakes and everything still there. They are finally out. They're over here in the corner ready for next year. I'll just leave them right there. They are made out of iron, so they'll be fine. But I came in here and pulled all those out. I pulled all the tomato plants and all of the pepper plants out and have taken those off to be composted. And then I came through here and mowed. And a lot of this from the video kind of looks like bare dirt, but that's not. That's vegetation that's been cut down. And I'll let that sit here this winter and rot down. I had plans to come in here and plant some turnip greens and some collard greens, but because of some equipment issues that I'm having this fall, it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. It's not a huge loss for us. We don't eat a lot of them, and I tend to overdo it when I do plant turnip greens and collards, and end up having to cut most of it and give it away, to be honest. But we were going to try to put some up this year, and a friend of ours told us how to do that and have them throughout the year, and that they taste just like fresh greens. But like I said, because of equipment issues this year, we are probably not going to be able to do that. But it is cleaned up. I'll let this rot down during the winter. I'll also be putting in, when all the leaves from all these trees that we have up here start to fall, I will chop those up and bring those down here and dump them in the garden as well, and let that rot down in the garden over the winter to provide some extra nutrients for the soil. As you can see, I still have some weed problems here around the edges of the fence, and I'll come back with the weed eater and take care of that. But everything is is looking good for the fall. Now, this is not the end of cleanup. I'm still have to clean up my potting area, my seed starting area. Once it gets started in the spring, when the seedlings start coming up and we start moving them and then putting them in the ground, it just never stops. And I try to clean up a little bit along the way, but the fall and the winter is when I really get to catch up, so that when I start seeds early in the spring and get ready to start putting them out, everything's cleaned up and ready to go. So still a long way to go in my shop where I do that, and to get everything ready to go again for next spring. But for now, this is where we're going to leave it, and I appreciate you being with me. If you are liking what you see, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel and give us a thumbs up, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. This is James from Butler Farms. I'll see you next time.